passed. Insurance Amendment Number 2 Bill 2020. Government bills. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Bill 2019. Ms. Alice Mack, Chairman of the Bills Committee on the bill, will first address the Council on the Bills Committee's report. Ms. Alice Mack. President, as Chairman of the Committee on the bill, I submit the report to the Council and relate to you the main matters. The purpose of the bill is to amend the Pharmacy and Poisons Ordinance and the Pharmacy and Poisons Regulations to regulate the manufacture, supply, and labeling of advanced therapy products or ATPs, and to regulate the keeping of records and other related matters. The Bills Committee notes that the government has introduced new definitions that had reference to the EU definitions. According to the proposed new definitions, the ATPs include any gene therapy products, high-risk somatic cell therapy products, and high-risk tissue-engineered products for human use. The committee notes that the definitions of the last two do differ from those used by the EU. The administration took into account local conditions, the need for supervision, and the consistency of the regulation structure so that the EU's definitions have been adapted accordingly. The administration believes that despite these differences relating to somatic cell therapy treatment products and tissue-engineered products, yet these differences from a perspective of supervision doesn't constitute any major departure. Concerning the keeping of records on ATPs, the members asked the administration to elaborate about the arrangement. The administration expresses that the bill provides that the licensed wholesalers and manufacturers that supply the ATPs should keep the records on the dentists and doctors concerned and relating to the storage and transportation. The period of record should be up 30 years after the expiry of the product. Now, if the licensed wholesaler or manufacturer stops to operate, the records should be handed to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. The administration feels that if there is a need there's a need to set regulations for the keeping of these records for proper supervision purpose and take into account international practice. Members feel that the medical beauty services are now quite prevalent. They ask that the government should step up regulation involving the advertisements for such treatment and should educate the public so that they can identify the proper practitioners and so that they can accept these treatment under qualified professionals. Now, the members are also concerned whether the Department of Health will increase its manpower to enforce the law and to engage in public education. The administration says that those advertisements that claim to offer therapeutic features of ATPs and those treatment programs are already under the Undesirable Medical Advertisements Ordinance. The administration feels that they will increase the resources for the Department of Health to conduct the preparation work and to step up inspections and checking of advertisements, and it may operate in coordination with the police. There will also be public education measures for the public to understand about the risk concerned. The government has taken into account the comments by the legal advisor and proposed a technical amendment. The committee has no disagreement with that. those are my comments on behalf of the committee. And here are now my personal comments. Is someone eating durian in this building? I was wondering whether someone would throw out a durian at 11:59. Now, these are my personal comments on the bill. Now, we are talking about a bill that has to do with a medical incident 8 years ago that has to do with a poisonous injection. 4 victims, and 3 of them suffered from serious side effects. One of the victims underwent shock and the blood contamination, so that she died, and the others also suffered. Now, that incident happened when I first joined the Council. That was the first medical incident that I came across, and the deceased person was a family member of the union that I belong to. So those who are unconscientious should be sanctioned. Now, that product was for cancer, and it shouldn't be used for the human body more generally, but they packaged it, they promoted it, and they created so-called immune cells and injected into the body. They didn't keep proper records. The blood products were contaminated by germs, and so this could cause death. Now these 3 defendants were sentenced to jail up to 12 years. Now, but in fact, one defendant had the relevant legal procedures hasn't been concluded. So that person is in fact still at large. Now, so there's no regulation on the somatic cell therapy treatment. So these unscrupulous people offer these services which are very dangerous and even can be cause death. Now, the government has taken action, and in 2018 to 19, it consulted the Health Affairs Panel, and only in 2019 was this bill gazetted and taken to Legislative Council for first reading. So license has now to be obtained. This bill, with regard to medical beauty services, conducts regulation. But starting with this term, as we all know, someone took control of the House Committee, so that the House Committee was paralyzed for most part of a year. So it's only recently that this bill committee came into formation. And 8 years later, finally, we have a bill to regulate these kinds of products and treatments. Now, after political dissent, we finally have achieved the arrival of this bill. Now, there's a new regulatory system, and the laissez-faire situation regarding these medical beauty services has been addressed. And these products have to be registered before they are sold. They must obtain permission before clinical tests, and they would be subject to import and export controls. All treatment procedures have to be licensed, and there has to be assurances for the safe treatment, and unlicensed operation would be penalized. I support this bill. As I said, in 2012, I started handling this medical beauty service incident and to try to help the family members of the victims. Now, matters have quietened down. These products have disappeared for a while, but now they are once again reappearing in the market. They are sold in packages. These advertisements are very concerning to us. The contents are misleading. They don't accord with the facts. We are afraid that consumers will be deceived. Even their life and health might be adversely affected. So apart from regulation, the government should also regulate regulating these products. They should regulate the advertisements. There should be more public education. Now, there's still some gray area. For instance, if you say some product is good for health, it's hard to regulate. So there should be more public education so that the public has the information to judge whether the treatment is suitable for them. Now, in 2012, the Department of Health took the initiative to inspect the premises concerned to see whether there has been breach of regulation. But now the work has decreased, especially for some beauty parlors and clinics. They claim in advertisements that some of their services are good for health and beauty, but the epidemic might have adversely affected the inspections by the Department of Health, but we cannot ignore that. So I like to say that at this meeting today, this is our last meeting in our term, and I'm reminded that 4 years ago, now we worked for the reform of the Medical Council, and at the end of the term, there was a member or certain members, they didn't want the Medical Council to be reformed early. They were being unconscientious. They caused the demise of the reform of the medical reforms, and now I still remember that clearly. Now, this afternoon, I was still talking to my colleagues whether we can ever scrutinize that bill. Now, starting with the 2012 incident, the administration decided to regulate the behavior concerned. There was a regulation of the medical premises. There were certain efforts at legislation regarding the premises, and then there was another initiative directed at medical equipment. Now, given the people who died in 2012, only 8 years later do we have a somewhat helpful piece of legislation. Now, I was concerned at 6 o'clock today. I was telling my colleagues whether we do have a chance of passing this bill. Otherwise, we have to wait for how many years? Fortunately, we are scrutinizing this bill, but still, I am saddened that our legislature has so deteriorated. We are an efficient metropolis. We legislate to amend, to regulate by legislation. It takes 8 years. Of course, the legislature has been out of order, but there's some problem also with the government. That's why the people have been dissatisfied. Now, as of today, I hope whether you, no matter which political inclination you are of, we should be conscientious and we should deal with these problems in a better way. The government has the responsibility to speed up and to pay more attention, to direct more efforts. Now, all the bureaucratic red tape should be got written off. And now so very fortunately, we are able to pass this bill in this last meeting. Now, this took 8 years. Hong Kong has been so torn in the past 8 years. Hong Kong is now so rotten. How many years will it take for us to recover? So to make legislation to regulate a matter, it took 8 years. We have only 1 hour left. There are now 5 members waiting to speak. If by 11:30 we cannot complete second reading, then it will encounter the fate that you just referred to. So if you wish this bill to be voted upon, everyone should be succinct. Please continue. Now, I've almost finished. But you interrupted me. I never use up my time to filibuster. Now, let's not drag on. I hope this bill will be completed in its legislation within this term. Hong Kong has become so rotten in the past year. Let us do something to have help Hong Kong recover. Dr. Joseph Lee.
Professor Joseph Lee. Well, at 11, it will be the last speech made in this chamber. I wonder if I use up this 2 minutes. Well, this bill is stemmed from the DR incident, which led to fatalities. And because of this, the government have taken on a glacial pace. And after this incident erupted in 2012, and they dragged on its feet, and only by 2017, they set up a task force to looking into it. And 2018, they have the consultation paper. I must clarify that this bill is not affected by our operations delay, but really due to the slow work of the government. The second point, I heard from Ms. Alice Mack that it seems that we are dragging it on, procrastinating. When it comes to this bill, I cared also myself about this bill. I hope that this bill can pass. Okay, please don't say I'm digressing. There's no that. Well, we don't have the script. We kind of estimate the time. We insist that this bill will pass tonight because this is an important bill. Due to the DR incident 8 years ago, when we test on the government, take this on, and the government being slow, they had tabled it in 2019. Well, it also in the face of the NC execution saga, and also the COVID-19. Well, today we're not talking about the matter of procrastination. Well, why the government has took so long to refer this bill to the council? There's a claim that the advanced therapy products related to a gene and the somatic cells, and also the medical products must be regulated. I believe there will be no objections there, so maybe they will have to move technical amendments or slightly divergent views. We can say that for all this procrastination which led to casualties to the government act on. And on this bill, the main proposals, in a lot of these advanced therapy products, we first define what they are. I'm not expert, so I'm debating this. However, it clearly stated that the gene therapy products, the high-risk cell therapy products, and also the high-risk tissue engineered products, even though we have no idea what they are, never mind, they also fall into the definition. Well, the government had it right this time. The European Union ATP principles. And now that we have set definition, then we can separate in different categories and we can regulate them. Well, all these relevant products must be registered. And for clinical trials, you must obtain prior approval. Well, currently, I'm extracting the cells, and after cultivation, then I'll inject it into my child's mouth because they're both leaving anyway. No, you can't do this. It has to be regulated. After this bill takes effect, how do you can achieve this supervision? Besides regulation, they also have this registration system. So whether for the manufacturer or the wholesaler, they need to obtain a license, and also for import-export. Well, if I get it correctly, that is the spirit of this bill. So this bill will ensure protecting the masses so that they will not be misled into some kind of quirky promotions by injecting this as cell-cultivated product. You will be forever young. This also comes with risk. Besides of this, the quality should be regulated, and the bill stated clearly, well, that it may act like the medical products should be subject to supervision. That if we're not mistaken, that we call this the Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Bill 2019, because we have a specific subset so that we can effectively regulate this advanced therapy products so that it will be given the same treatment in medical products and in manufacturers, just like the licensed manufacturer of pharmaceutical products, they will also be subject to the same level of regulation. So these are pharma products, and that this bill after taking effect, these are the advantages which will afford protection for everyone. Besides this, I must commend the government for this. This time they did a good job that we require a record keeping. That asked to preserve the clear records, whether for the sale and the use of that for 30 years. Well, I believe that after injection 30 years, I probably would have passed away. I probably expect to live this long. I'm already 60 years old. How would I live through 90? Well, I suppose I won't live through 120 years old. Well, this bill can guarantee their tracing so that the users will very well know that it is safe. All this regulatory framework, well, whether for the registration, obtaining license, manufacturing, the storage, will all give a clear regulation. With this bill, I believe it should pass by about 11:30. But the user will be more assured, and while the practitioners or the service provider must comply with the law. If it doesn't comply with the law, well, I'm totally with the government on this. They like to, on the penalty, this is offered a level 6 penalty. Well, if you break the law, the level 6 penalty, a fine of $100,000, and also 2 years imprisonment. That's the thing. But I'm not running for election. Well, I see it as a very good penalty, which have been an effective deterrent to prevent people from going rogue. I also have other views on this bill. Well, there's something important about the legislation. Instead of regulating this by black and white, the intent of the bill is to prevent certain behaviors. The government must take on something after passing this bill. Well, Secretary, please carry on while I leave the lecture. Please be clear with enforcement. And after enactment, you must provide a clear public education through the Department of Health that telling the public that the risk of the advanced therapy products and what the precautions when taken were being bought and administering them, and the manufacturers to be ethical and should not making untrue claims. Besides regulation, the enforcement education are equally important. Based on both reasons, I'm very supportive of the government, well, after tonight, to legislate between 8 years. We should delay no more. 8 years from the DR incident, a very unfortunate event. Just only 7 minutes. Pardon me, President. Well, after 16 years, just one more thing. I hope we can teach tradition at the old electrical tower. Well, at the end tower, we have a farewell motion, well, which has vanished. Well, indulge me for 2 to 3 minutes. I may say something related to this bill. This farewell speech. Well, I remembered I had a photo the old electrical to my new building. 16 years ago, I was a novice legislator, had no idea what's going on, and then we took a photo, for a group photo. One thing is clear: well, whether you're filibustering or not, whether you messages, three things we have to do. First thing you must agree. Of course, that we must legislate, was to protect the general public. Two, to scrutinize the appropriation bill. I've been criticizing and say that Mr. Yes. Well, we should be scrutinizing the public expenditure to see if the government is spending on the right places. And thirdly, whether your policies are good. Well, I learned two things. 60. Well, four characters. Well, for three, the grand groups, I'm talking about the check and balance, and also check about abuse. Unfortunately, in the past few years, just now I heard Mr. Wu Chiwai. I almost want to laugh. Well, I wonder how is that be written down in Hansard. Well, the current administration is total nonsense, which made the electrical have lost its watchdog, not able to oversight administration, regardless of which side you're on. But those who you have to achieve the three main goals and also discharge our proper functions. Well, it's as long as we get corrupt no votes and just let it pass. Well, I'm not having any final words. Indulge me in 30 seconds more. I must cry out. Mr. Chingpo claiming that somebody criticizing this and that. Well, I'm the most innocent. Well, I've been criticizing as someone as when they function constituency, including my own electors. Over my decade of service for my constituents, I always have to fight for my constituents' interests. However, someone from health services to have more doctors and nurses and more physical, more hospitals and more beds, which enhance the student welfare. I suppose the Secretary will agree that the Hong Kong healthcare system will continue to improve, and with the health service sector, and also the interests have aligned with these patients' welfare. The legislative work I'm involved in and all the vetting of the public finances and also scrutinizing public policies. It also revolved the sector interest of health services and for all Hong Kong people. Well, with some different political level. While 16 years on, I will finish in quite a few seconds. For those who are here, we should do what a legislature should do, which is we often check and balances and limit the government's power and hope that the legislature can achieve this check and balance. Otherwise, the government's abuse power. Thank you.
Let me remind members that it is now 2011. If we cannot pass this bill by third reading, this bill will not be passed. Now there are 6 members waiting to speak. I will stop the work of this bill at the right time. Dr. Kokaki, I will be as short as possible. I support this bill, but I find it regrettable because I wonder whether it would address the problems we have seen in relation to the beauty industry between 2000 and 2019. The last time there was any regulation about the beauty industry, it was a long time ago. 2004, there was this voluntary regulation of equipment relating to medical beauty equipment. There was a study conducted by the Consumer Council. 90% of respondents think that the beauty industry in Hong Kong should be regulated. There has been a number of suggestions, say a licensing regime, demerit system. Public interest should be properly protected. Dubious sales tactics, say for example, forcing consumers to purchase packages when they are naked and stuck on the bed, is no news nowadays. Every single time there was a proposal to regulate relevant equipment and the industry, nothing will happen in the end. Now, under this bill, certain matters will be regulated, say stem cell treatment, advanced therapy products, and substance for transplant. Well, such kind of treatment accounts for only a very small percentage of the industry. What we doubt is whether there is any determination on the part of the government to actually regulate malpractice. Over the years, some companies have been using dubious sales tactics to cheat consumers. The government, however, did not do anything. I think a trigger point of this bill was what happened in 2012, the DR incident. For a lot of these new treatments, well, it doesn't do what it suggests on the tin because there is no scientific base, there is no scientific evidence supporting what they claim. We don't know whether there is a bacteria-free environment for the treatment to be conducted. It has cost lives and money. I think the main culprit is the government. For decades, the government has turned the other cheek. We've been talking about the regulation of the beauty industry and equipment used. Well, a lot of political parties that represent the sector would not care about consumer interests and the interest of the general public. What they asked was not to affect the business environment. If everything operates normally, no one would bat an eyelid. But the public has less and less confidence in the industry, and a lot of these companies have been used just to raise capital. I'm not going to go into details. I think the government has not done anything to regulate this in this regard.
I now remind you there are 5 members still to speak. Now, if we cannot do second reading by 30 past the hour, we will not handle this bill. Claudia Mo.
Pages of my speech, so don't worry. Now, this Pharmacy and Poisons Bill is to give a legal and regulatory framework on biotechnology in Hong Kong, which involves gene therapy and all those innovative medical products called advanced therapy products, in short, ATPs. And I was going through the entire bill. I was going to discuss it in great detail, but I will skip that all. Now, the source of this bill is it's all from this very serious and also fatal blunders in our beauty clinics, resulting in 1 death and 3 seriously injured cases after some experimental procedure involving blood transfusion. Essentially, it's some stem cell treatment. Now, many people would have the wrong impression that it's all about beauty treatments, that it's all this about this anti-aging procedures, that it's a matter of vanity and so on. No, for the lack of a better term, there are the uses for more proper, that's what I mean, more proper or conventional medical treatments, such as, including cord blood banking, cornea, and bone marrow transplants. Now, when it comes to government regulations, if they're too little, you will get blamed for meltdowns of any sort, including financial meltdowns. But if they're too much, you'll be accused of choking the market, that you're suffocating a free economy. So, but then, even though I'm very proudly in the opposition, I cannot oppose this particular bill because it's a matter of life and death. And on the political front, now since this is the last night tonight of this term at this legislature, can I remind Hong Kongers that it's the Beijing puppets, toadies, and grubs that are selling out Hong Kong. Thank you.
黃碧雲議員。
主席，
Dr. Helena Wong, President, tonight is the last bill for this sixth term, and this is going to be my last time to speak in my electrical career. By sheer coincidence, this Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Bill 2019 is here to deal with the advanced therapy products. That's because in 2012 we had the DR incident. Someone used the CIK cell, which is a means to cure cancer. It was used for beauty treatment. One died and two were severely injured. In 2012, I was elected to become electrical member. That was the very first time I moved the members' motion for debate. I'm about to leave this council, and by sheer coincidence, I am ending my career with this bill. And after 8 years, we have finally come to this step in Hong Kong, and it's excruciatingly slow to amend any legislation. It's not until I'm approaching the end of my career here that we're dealing with this amendment. We'd like to incorporate the ATP into the regulatory ambit. Medical science is ripping ahead by leaps and bounds. We just don't have the regulatory framework, and the danger is so bad that it can be lethal. We're not trying to undermine any ATP, like a gene therapy product, somatic cell therapy product, and high-risk tissue engineered product. Medical science is advancing very, very rapidly. I hope that with the enactment of this bill, the development of ATP and application will be brought under the regulatory ambit of the ordinance. We should notice that these ATP advanced therapy products will be the way to go. We understand that the ATPs would involve the extraction of human tissue, and we reintroduced into human bodies. A therapy, CAR-T therapy, is used to cure the lymphatic cancer, and the T cell is extracted, which is reformulated and reintroduced into human bodies to get rid of the cancer cells. We do have this kind of technology available, but it will come at exorbitant cost. When we support the ATP and bring it under control, we have to then move on to deal with the issue of who will be able to enjoy the therapy. CAR T will cost a few $1 million in terms of treatment. So the government should consider how best we can make the treatments popular and make them available to the lower rung of the community as well. Other than the price tag, we have to deal with the personnel who will be the authorized persons to get the license, and how we can monitor and supervise these ATPs. So personnel training is something that the government should do more of. I think I support the bill.
Starry Lee. President, I speak to support this bill, and as my members before me had mentioned, that the legal framework is always behind. It takes time to legislate. Why it took 8 years, I don't want to elaborate. Well, we have running a very try to beat the clock. Hope that the government and the LegCo will need to take heart like themselves. Well, the government claimed to have priorities, and also coupled with a filibustering at LegCo and also the COVID-19. And also we need to strike a balance. I would like to say a few words for the beauty industry. It's just like an orphan, but the government is not able to set up a qualification framework. In the course of legislation, we must protect consumers. At the same time, we need to recognize the contribution of the beauty industry. We have discussed that with the Secretary on multiple occasions. We're not bringing it up again. I hope that the Secretary continue to liaise with the sector and to explain to the public, well, as a whole, these are the dilemma of those in favor of the government. While we wish to pass more legislation, we will try to speak less, but doesn't mean that we don't have our personal views that we don't need to express. In any case, I would like this opportunity. Well, I've been a legislator for over a decade. This is the toughest year for me as a legislator. I believe that each member would like to see Hong Kong to go forward. For the past year in Hong Kong, and the unprecedented challenge, we see the society torn apart and polarized. Well, the social incident and the future ordinance is a trigger point, but the key is the government must address our deep roots problems and make good use of the Chamber's time, and we need to formulate good policies to deal with all kinds of social problems. Hope that the government would communicate with different political camps. It would not be so arrogant, and always take pride on their own experience and refuse to take in the views of others. I hope that Hong Kong will have a better tomorrow. Secretary, I hope that you continue to talk to us as I'll submit.
Dr. Fernando Zhang. Well, this is the last time I'm going to speak after a stretch of 12 years and altogether 16 years. I hope that this bill will be passed. This bill is about advanced therapy products, not just about beauty services or medical beauty services. Advanced therapy products involves the treatment of cancer and rare diseases. For people who suffer from serious illnesses, of course, it is important for them to have this bill. But this bill only regulates. It doesn't resolve problems such as financial support to patients to buy drugs and to procure suitable treatment. It is our policy in healthcare that no one will be deprived of healthcare services because of lack of means. I have to declare that my daughter suffers from a rare disease. I enter this council hoping to help those who are sick, weak, underprivileged, old, and other groups that have been surviving on the fringe. I regret to say that our work over the years is just like this bill. Something is done, but the root problem is still here. There are a lot of people suffering from serious illnesses. They need help to buy drugs and to receive treatment, but they get no help. Regardless of our endeavor, I try to move a bill to deal with rare illnesses. I try to set up a fund for patients suffering from rare diseases. That's my work for over a decade as a legislator. We can only scratch the surface. There is no way for us to get those in power to hear the voice of the people. Does any other member wish to speak? I now ask the Secretary for Food and Health to speak, and then the debate will come to a close. President, this is the bill on pharmacy and poisons amendment. This is in relation to the regulation of advanced therapy product.
So that people can get the treatment in a safe manner. The bill had extensive consultation, and we had the Bills Committee discussing the matter. I urge members to support the bill. I now put the question to you that the Pharmacy and Poisons Bill be read the second time. Those in favour, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed to the majority of the members who are present. I declare that the motion passed. Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Bill 2019. This council now becomes Committee of the Whole Council to consider the Pharmacy